Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. Today, we are still at Service World Expo, and we've got on Steve Miles from St. Louis. He runs Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning, and he has truly built a phenomenal business. It was a family business that he took over, and he has done incredible things with it. They are running an 8-figure business concentrating on a really, really tight market. They truly believe in owning your own backyard. And we got into all kinds of things today, talking about leadership and respect, being committed to the outcome and staying true to your process to get to that outcome, keeping emotion out of decisions. It was a fantastic conversation. I know you're going to love it too. A lot of these things are key factors that help Steve run this company to where it is at today. I know you're going to enjoy it as well. So here you go with Steve Miles.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. I'm Thaddeus, that's Evan. Today we have on Steve Miles with us today on the show. He's been, interesting story when we were talking about it before you got on. Family business, that's 46-year-old business. You started in 1998. You've been running the business for 21 years. You guys have 16 techs, 7 install crews, just over 8 figures. We didn't actually say if we could talk about revenue numbers, so we're okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, your trailing 12 months is about $14 million in annual revenue. Your journey has been, fascinating. So walk us through your start into the trades.
All right. Well, 98 is when I started running the business. I actually married into the business in 1994. Started out as a service dispatcher, worked up to service manager, went into sales, became a sales manager. And then in 1998, I became general manager right around the first round of consolidation. Because my in-laws were considering selling out. I had just joined a bunch of peer groups, much like Service Nation Alliance.
Yep.
And everybody in the peer group told me that we should do and how to do what the consolidators said they were going to do for us. So I asked to have a chance to do it, and here we are.
So did you guys end up consolidating?
No.
Turn them down? So, fascinating topic, right? I mean, you hear, shit right now, just what the industry went through, right? You're talking about PE coming in, buying businesses, rolling them up. You look at what other ones are doing, and they're buying them individually, keeping them separate or rolling them up into their brand. I guess, why did you guys not go the consolidation route?
Well, originally I was young, and I wanted to give it my own shot and see what we could do. We did well. And right now, quite honestly, nobody's hit my number yet. I mean, I know how much we make. I know how much I need to live out my life and then provide for my family, and nobody's hit the number I need. So I figured I'll just keep milking the cow.
Right, might as well. And the other part you look at that on a business is what's your actual intent? Do you have a number in what you want to sell out for? Chatting with somebody yesterday, he's like, yeah, I have a 12-year plan. In 10 years I want to sell, 2 years I want to stay on, and then I'm fully out, right? And so knowing that deep down, what you actually want is a powerful thing.
Yeah, yep. It helps. And both my kids have great jobs. I don't think either one of them want to get into business. They saw what my wife and I went through running a family business, because it spills over into your private life.
Right.
They didn't have any choice. They were in the business.
Right.
So, I don't know that either one of them at this point are interested in it, but I always had a rule. They had to get a job in the real world before they came into the family business, because if you live in the forest, you don't necessarily see the trees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So walk us through some of the difficulties of joining a family business that was your chosen family, the one that you were married into. And I know for a lot of people, we joke about it all the time, having outlaws instead of in-laws sometimes. But walk us through some of those challenges and those difficulties.
My in-laws have been great. They always let me try everything that I learned from peer groups like Service Nation. If I had an idea, we'd talk about it, and they would let me try it. The hardest part was the employees, because I got my job because I married into it. I wasn't qualified in their minds, right? What they didn't know at the time is I have a very technical background. I've been to school. I know refrigerant theory. I knew it all. So I didn't have a problem holding them to account because they would just try silly stuff and just make stuff up. And I'd go, no, that's not how it works. Here's how it works. Let's do it. So after a while, I gained their respect, but it was a time-consuming process. I had to earn their respect.
Well, it's actually funny. We were listening to some John Maxwell earlier this week. Actually, when we first got in on Tuesday. In our business, our marketing company, we have a couple best practice groups that we're part of as well. And one of them just hired John Maxwell as the first one. And one of the things that he said is respect is earned daily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And what I've learned most from growing and being part of like Service Nation Alliance and other peer groups, you have to be able to delegate and you have to have good people because you can't do it all yourself. Where's the soda bottle the smallest? Where's the restriction when you want to dump it out?
Right.
It's at the top.
Yep.
When I first became general manager, I was in charge of everything. All the ad buys, all the marketing, everything stopped at me, and I was busy running the company, so a lot of that got missed. You have to have people that you trust that can take care of that stuff. Otherwise, it won't get done, and that just holds the business back.
Right. So on that topic of delegation, and I know that business owners have a very tough time delegating tasks out because you're like, well, I can just do it better than you. I can do it faster than you. How do you get over that mindset as a business owner to know that somebody isn't going to be doing it to exactly your level?
You have to be pragmatic. It may not get done the way you do it, but will it get done? And the other part is, yeah, I can do it better and faster than you once, but if I've got to do it 100 times, I would do much better off taking 3 times to teach you how to do it right and then let you do it. You just have to be pragmatic.
Right, makes sense. And, I talk a lot about Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, and he talks about the 80% rule. Can you get somebody to do it 80% of how you would do it? Then you're winning,
Exactly.
right? And if eventually you're probably going to get them to doing it better than you would do it, anyways, if you give them and faster, if you give them the opportunity to do it. And that's, I think, the big thing is just letting go of that control. It's easier said than done, obviously.
It is. I mean, quite honestly, we're all control freaks, especially if you run a business and you built it, it's your baby. You don't want anybody to mess anything up. And when they do, it upsets you. It's a big psychological leap to overcome that and just say, hey, it's all great. You did well. Yeah, we'll fix it next time.
Yep. What was the thing that we heard in terms of that upset? Disappointment is the difference between expectations and reality.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yep.
Maxwell.
John Maxwell. Just busting out John Maxwell quotes here today.
The difficulties of allowing them to run their process versus you knowing how it should be done in your mind. And when you see them struggling through it or when you see them taking longer than what you feel like it should, how do you coach them through that process?
First, you ask them if they want your help. They may not. And if they do, you try and give it to them and not be critical and just be supportive and show them how you would do it. And you're right. 9 times out of 10, a little while down the road, they're going to have it much better processed than I had.
Correct.
So it's just a matter of having the patience.
Yeah, you got to give them the room to fail, right?
Exactly.
I always equate it back to parenting.
Well, one of our core values is we don't run away from failure. We share it.
Right.
That way everybody doesn't have to have the same failure. Let's just learn from them and move on.
Yep.
Right. And embracing failure, that's the reading between those lines on that. And that's what it is,
what's
right?
the saying? If you haven't failed, you haven't tried.
Right. And
how are you going to get better if you don't fail?
Yep,
That's
100%.
the only way to get better.
100%. Well, but bring that as a core value and talking about that with your team and saying, hey, it's okay to have failure. It's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We're going to be here to help you get back up and keep going again.
But as kids, what are you taught? Don't fail. Don't fail.
It's all ass backwards.
It's a hard paradigm to shift.
Correct.
Because nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to feel like they made a mistake, but you'll never get better unless you make a mistake.
Right.
Because if you did it right the first time, you didn't need to learn anything, so you don't.
Well, it process versus outcomes, right? Yeah. And looking at that, and there are many good things that are books out there. I think the one was Mindset by Carolyn Dweck, and they actually talked about kids specifically about don't necessarily focus on what your outcome is, but focus on the process and the work. And what's the study you've talked about it a few times about the study where they took they took kids in a room and they put them in, and maybe this is me that was talked about and I'm just in an alternate reality right now. I don't know, I had this Zip Fizz thing that was in the room and I'm fucking vibrating right now. So, I mean, yeah, normally we have good conversations when we're drinking, but in this case it's just caffeine running through my veins. But they've done some studies where they've actually put people in a room and they focused on the kids on actually rewarding the
journey in the process.
The journey in the process. And so they focus on what their outcome is, and they just, it's math problems, right? And, and putting in, you got the wrong answer, but it's only focusing on the outcome. And then they took another subset and they put it into the actual, the process and the work and doing those sorts of things. And it didn't matter if you had the wrong answer, but you focused on the process, right? The kids that just focused on the first group, they actually started giving up a lot quicker, where the other ones that focused on the process, they actually continued to go through it and continue to work and continue to try new things, right?
It makes sense, yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it is such a delicate balance and a dichotomy, because you do still need to be focused on what it is that you want. You have that outcome that's off in the distance.
It's
but
still a
daily
business.
It's focusing on what is it that I need to do.
Absolutely.
Yep. No, 100%.
I want to dive into some of those failures that you've experienced in business, because obviously you've been around as long as you have. There's no way that you haven't failed.
We're at
elements.
We're at an industry event, right?
Yep.
The biggest single failure I probably ever had coming from an industry event is drinking from the fire hose, getting 25 great ideas, and then wanting to implement them all at one time.
Right. I don't know if there's a business owner out there that hasn't been guilty of that at some point.
Talk about a colossal failure.
Absolutely.
And then the next time you come back, they're all like, "Oh, he just came back from another show. What do we got to go through for the next 6 weeks?"
Right. Yeah.
So and what did I learn from it? Break the list down, prioritize, take one or two items, run with it. 6 months later, if they've taken root and gone on their own, you can move on and implement the next couple things.
Mm-hmm. Right. I was just in a talk with Stephanie Pastel, and she said 2 worst days for the technician: Mondays and the day that the owner gets home from conference.
There is a whole lot of truth to that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I started bringing my team, because if I have an idea and I try and shove it down their throats, it's a difficult fight.
Right.
If I bring them to the conference, they heard it, the light bulb went off in their head, suddenly it's their idea, and it's much easier for them to run with it.
Right. Well, and there's also the other skill set too, is if you don't have your team, you don't have the ability to bring them here because they're doing those other sorts of things and travel and what have you. How do you then, if you have the idea, to shift that focus where you can ask them leading questions, so it almost comes up as like it's their idea?
The old Socratic method, huh? Big word we just heard. But yeah, I mean, if you can ask the questions to guide them to the conclusion where they figure it out themselves, that's always the better way to go.
Right. And then they feel empowered. I mean, it's a skill set. It takes a lot of practice to be able to get good at it, but asking questions to be able to get the answers, right? And leading them down that path.
Kind of like sales.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. Or podcasting. So that was one failure. What's another one?
Oh, goodness. I mean, there's been so many. Where do you pick? A lot of them have involved hiring. You get somebody that comes in and you're just wowed by their sales ability during the interview, and you don't necessarily do your due diligence, and it leaves egg on your face. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to have a process for everything. The more you can take emotion out of the decision-making process, the better off I think you're going to be.
Right. Well, and we just talked about with AI, they've removed the emotion out of that. So, but how does one, I guess, AI is the easy one, right? It takes emotion out of it. But when you're looking at that hiring process, and we had Tom Peregrino on yesterday, and he talked about, his hiring process and 12 steps. He also said, don't hire strippers as CSRs, which I thought was kind of funny. But in that emotional process, how do you remove that from your decision-making when we are emotional creatures?
Have other people involved. Like, one thing I always do is I always have women involved in any interview. Because as a man, I might see a guy that's a little weird, and I'm okay with it. I'm not threatened or anything like that. But if you have a woman in the interview process, she'll go, no way is he coming in my house. No
right.
way. And it's like, why? I don't know. And I just call it the creep factor. And, that's one of the most valuable things I've learned, is to have a woman in the interview process, because in the residential field, who is the person home most of the time when you show up to do work?
Correct.
Yep.
And if he's going to creep her out, are you going to make a sale?
Right. Well, and not to mention what it does to your office culture, right? When you look at a predominantly woman-run office staff, when it comes to CSRs, when it comes
Absolutely.
to dispatchers, even office managers, it's incredibly important to have good culture within the office. And if you got someone in there that's creeping people out, making them feel off.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Exactly.
And talking about mistakes, another one of my mistakes, and it involves emotion, is probably getting upset and blowing up, losing my cool in front of everybody. It feels good in the moment, but you got to spend the next 12 months repairing the relationships you just tore apart.
Right.
So as I get older, my wife says she likes the 61-year-old Steve much better than the 30-year-old Steve.
Less hot-headed. But if somebody knows that about themselves, that they know that they blow up, and I mean, that's almost emotional intelligence in a sense, and understanding your feelings and knowing those sorts of things. If they know that, I guess if you've done that, what did you do to mitigate that?
Just force myself to sit there and be quiet. Let it stew for a while. Don't just do the immediate emotional response. Think about it. Let it go an hour, a day, a week. Think about it. And then usually my reaction will change.
Well, it's like those emails, right? Hey, when you get that hot-headed email come into you and you write an email back and you're like, and you write it out, well, don't hit send right away. Pause and reread it the next day because
put it in the draft and let it simmer for a while.
Yeah, 100% agree to that. So
how do you take the time to pause though when it's something that does need immediate attention and immediate coaching?
You take the emotion out of it as much as you can.
Yeah.
And there again, you're back to asking questions. What happened? What went wrong? What can you do next time not to do it? And yeah, the more you take emotions out of it, because everybody's emotional. You blow up on them, now all of a sudden they got their emotions flaring up, and it's not a constructive situation.
Do you ever think of bringing like a moderator into the room for those conversations too?
Well, my general manager, Shelley's a pretty good moderator, so she's
go.
in there and she'll kick me under the table and things like that, yeah.
and I mean, you mentioned, I'm assuming she's a woman, but
we won't judge.
He said she, yeah. Well, I mean, you had all the
ribbons?
the ribbons on your badge when you're hearing, like, I identify with all of them. So, but generally speaking, women are better emotionally regulated when it comes to those sorts of conversations.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. And they're also better at reading other people's emotions.
Yep. They generally score higher on emotional intelligence than men.
Yes.
So generally speaking. So, in shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that, being in business for 46 years, the staying power of that to be able to be where you're at, but also the changes in A, personnel, and B, technologies, right? How do you adapt as a business owner to things from 46 years ago? I mean, obviously you weren't running the business. I mean, 98, I was around 98. I wasn't running a business, but I know what life was like back then. And it was completely different to what it is today.
The only constant is change. And if you're not willing to change and keep up, you will be left behind. And that's one thing my in-laws established when they started the business. They brought in outside consultants when nobody did that. And coming to trade shows and learning what's going on. I mean, AI, the session we just left, I think that's awesome, and I want to implement it as soon as possible. And that's how you stay ahead. You got to stay fresh because things are always changing, and the faster you can learn to accept, adapt, and incorporate the changes into your business, the more successful you'll be. And it's also about asking people. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame yesterday, and it's a great honor that I never expected. But when I started in this business 30 years ago, I met current Hall of Famers. And I asked them, and they'd tell me, you've got to do this. And I go, I do. Why? They'd explain it to me, and then they'd say again, you've got to do this. And I just blindly went back and said, hey, they said we got to do this. These guys are successful. We're going to do it. Well, we can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't hear me? We just started 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And that's kind of been my attitude all along. Even if we can't do it right now, we've already done it. It's going to be a process. It's going to take 6 months, but somebody's got to decide.
Right. Well, and that's also a good topic in and of itself, is that whole idea of when others tell you something, and they're successful, chances of you putting it into your business and having the same success are great. You just have to buy in from the team. That being said, there's also a lot of shitty advice out there that some people do give. How do you read between the lines of something that is good and something that is shitty?
It comes down to being able to read people maybe, and then look into their history. Okay, this guy says all this stuff. Is it true? I mean, with the information age right now, you can find out anything you want about people. And it's amazing how many of these self-proclaimed gurus, you do a little research on them, you might be shocked at their pasts. And that kind of gives you a roadmap. On the other hand, some of the guys that I would listen to, like Mitch Kropp, Larry Taylor, Stan Johnson. They had a reputation wide and deep in the industry, so it was easier to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They were a known factor. Like I see emails coming across all the time from people saying they're going to 100 times my business in 6 months or whatever, and I don't know who they are.
Right.
I've been in this industry for 30 years. I know a lot of people, and this is such a small industry, it's hard for somebody like that to fly under the radar that's really that good.
Yep. No, that's all really valuable advice. And I mean, you've been in Service Nation for 21 years since the beginning of it.
Yes.
Obviously, the organization has evolved and it's changed and it's grown and it's continued to expand. But the value of mentorship, the value of coaching, what has it meant to you in your business?
Everything. If we had not gone through all the processes of becoming engaged in national organizations, best practices groups, I don't know that we'd still be in business, because almost everything we do today is a result of something we learned at one of these peer groups.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we just got finished another event last week, and we were talking about this last night. So I was like, well, what's the difference between this one and the other one? And I mean, a lot of similarities in it. The other one, I found it was people that are, hungry and willing and to grow and to learn. And here, I find there's a lot of people doing the opposite. They're already there, and they're teaching and they're giving value, and it's so fascinating to see the difference. I mean, similarities, but differences in the groups, with that value top down approach.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, getting nominated to the HVAC Hall of Fame. I never thought I'd be that guy. I was always the young guy. Now I look around and I go, okay, yeah.
Yep. Time goes by fast,
Yeah.
right?
Time keeps marching on. But and all I want to do is help people, and I'm direct and blunt. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. If you come to me with a problem, I'll tell you what I think, and then you have to do the research. I just talked about it. Look at my background, run it by other people. Hey, Steve said to do this. What do you think? And then make your decision. But Tommy Mello said it yesterday in his keynote. 99% of the people aren't going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other 1% are, and honestly, that's a good thing, because a rising tide raises all boat. If they make their business better, that just gives me the opportunity to rise with them and make my business better.
Right, together we're stronger. So,
and Tom Howard mentioned in the beginning of Tommy's book, he has people coming up to him all the time saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do these big things, similar to you, right? We're going to 100x your business in the next 6 months. When Tommy came up to him, he's like, there's something different about that guy. And I still don't believe him, because everyone fucking says that shit. But Tommy is a remarkable
He is. He's dynamic, and he loves his people, and he puts back into his people, and he gives. And you got to give to get.
Yeah.
Right.
Zig Ziglar, you can have anything you want as long as you help enough other people get what they want first.
No, 100%. And that's a testament to the culture and the organization that he's built. Ian, you mentioned something. You look around the room, there's young guys, and the changing of the guard, so to speak. If you had one message for the younger generation that is just getting started or haven't even really entered into the trades, but they're the younger generation, they're the new crop, what would be that one message you would give to them?
Know your financials. Know your financials. What are they telling you? And with the technology available today, Service Titan, Sarah, you can know minute by minute where you're at financially. You got to know where it's at. You got to learn how to read a balance sheet. You got to learn how to read an income statement. It takes a 5-year degree to become an accountant. It takes a 5th grade education to understand what they produce. Mm-hmm. It's just simple addition and subtraction, but you need to know what it tells you. And that's probably the most important thing. After that, it's implementation. Good ideas and implementation, but you have to know your financials.
Right.
You're in business. You're not a charity. It's not a hobby.
Yep.
Or it shouldn't be.
No, some people treat it like that, but no, that is a key thing, because you look at what's the statistic? 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, or the businesses that do fail, I guess 80% of them go out of business because of improperly managed cash flow, because they don't understand the money in, money out scenario behind it. So, and
50% of statistics are made up. So
yeah, including that one that I just said. So I do know that the big portion of business. Well, why do you go to business? Well, it's because you can't afford to pay your shit, right? Simple as that. I guess
definition of an entrepreneur: cannot hold a job.
Right. But the other notion sometimes that entrepreneurs get trapped in is, well, I can just earn my way out of anything.
Right.
Right. I can just go like, oh, cool. I'm just going to earn more money and I'm going to earn my way out of that problem or work my way out of that problem. And it's not always the case. And circling back to the financials and balance sheet and income statement and profit and loss and all those things, I guess, running your business, what are the 3 key financial metrics that you're looking at, either daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? You decide on those ones.
The biggest one, number one, is cash flow. Look at the balance sheet, where we sit cash flow wise. But the other one for our technicians is what's their revenue per opportunity. I mean, I'm spending a lot of money to get these calls in. How much are they converting it to? And that's probably the biggest one I watch on a daily basis. And then I allocate our calls by who's making the most out of the opportunities, because that's all we've got. All we've got is our man hours and opportunities. We got to make the two come together to generate revenue.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. I was wondering if you want to expand on the revenue per opportunity one at all.
Yeah, let's go for it.
What do you want to know?
Well, I guess, if somebody's first hearing, what does revenue per opportunity mean? I mean, I know what it is, but hey, somebody else listening might not.
Well, every call that they go on, if it's not a no charge or a callback, is an opportunity to sell something. Mm-hmm. How did they do? Did they just go out on a $98 diagnostic, flip a switch, and then say, hey, you don't owe me anything. All I had to do was flip a switch. See you later, $98. That's a $0 revenue per opportunity. On the other hand, if they go in, they look over the whole system, and all you had to do is switch, but also while I was here, I noticed your blower wheel's dirty, your A-coil's choked up. Come up with the litany of things that are going wrong, but maybe not causing a failure at this time, and convincing the customer that they probably ought to take care of this right now instead of the hottest day of the year when it breaks down, and generating the revenue for that opportunity. That's what it is. It's taking the most out of every opportunity and turning it into revenue of some sort. And it's not selling people they don't need. It's letting them know what they do need so that they don't have to see you again in 2 weeks.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I wanted to make sure we hit on, is that it's not just about selling people shit that they don't need.
No,
you nailed
absolutely.
that. Yep. Thank you for addressing that part, because that is a fear of a lot of people. It's like, I got into business because my owner that I was working for told me to go sell shit that I didn't believe in selling. But the reality is you need to, who's going to be more pissed off? The customer who you presented them with options and then they chose not to move forward with them, or the customer that you didn't talk about anything with and they had to call you back in 2 weeks because something else broke?
If I come out to your house and I said, oh, the switch was flipped off, and I flip it on and no, I don't, and I leave, and the next day it breaks down again because something else you should have found went bad. Number one, they're angry at you because you were just here, you should have known. Number two, they're not going to pay you for it when they should have been paying you for it.
Correct.
Because you should have found it the first time, or maybe they think you did it just so you could get back in the house. No, you've got to give them a thorough diagnosis and tell them about all the failures and potential failures that might happen. Let's face it, technology. We've got the tools now to predict when a capacitor is going to go bad. We know that a contactor's got pitted contacts. We know that we can measure igniters and we can measure flame sensors. We can measure all this, and we know if it's within tolerances or not. And if it's not, it might still be working, but guess what? It's gonna failure. Mm-hmm. And you just gotta let the customer know and then let them decide. Mm-hmm. And then once you let them know if it fails tomorrow, well, hey, I told you about that. Oh yeah, you did, come on, why don't you fix it now? Mm-hmm. It changes the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you said a key thing is let the customer know and let them decide. Educate.
Absolutely.
Don't sell, educate.
And give them options.
Right?
Yeah, I can flip the switch for free. I can replace this one component that's really bad. Or, hey, these 4 components are like light bulbs. They're all the same age. They're all going to start going one at a time. So why don't we replace them all, and you're probably good for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for addressing that.
Yes, 100%. So,
well, I just believe in it because there's so much stuff like that maintenance clubs and all that, you got to have them. They're critical for the business, but honestly, these people have enough friends. They're too busy running their kids around to the soccer games, the volleyball matches, to the school plays. They really don't need another best friend that comes over all the time. You get these old techs, and unfortunately, maybe they had a little ADHD, little dyslexia going to school. They couldn't learn books, but they could fix things.
Right.
They can look at something mechanical and figure it out, and that's where they get their sense of self-worth.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I can fix it. It's 30 years old, but I can fix it. Well, what if it breaks down next week? I can fix it again. Does the customer really want to see you again? I don't know, but I can fix it. I mean, if they don't make that part, if they had a forge out in their truck, they'd make it and beat it, like an old blacksmith, and make the part they needed because that's what they think they want to do. But is it in the customer's best interest?
Yep, I just went through this, right? I have a rental house. My furnace is 27 years old, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you know what? I could fix these parts. It'll cost you, $2-3 grand, but you should probably just replace it. It's double the cost." But now you don't have to worry about it. You're not just putting lipstick on a pig to be able to get it running down the road. You're going to rebuild it from scratch.
And
right?
that's exactly the way it should be handled. Instead of, I can fix it, $2,000 without even giving the customer the option.
Yep.
Because they don't know.
Yep.
I mean, you ask somebody how old their furnace is. 5 years, 10 years maybe. You get there and it's a 40-year-old furnace.
Right, because that's when they moved in, right? No, it's 5 years old. We moved in 5 years ago.
They don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue, right? I mean, I thought mine was 19, and then I found out it was 27, so I'm case in point, right?
Right.
Cool.
Well, this has been phenomenal conversation. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, best way to reach out to you.
Go to our website, jerrykelly.com, leave an email, and it'll get to me.
Okay.
And I love answering questions. I love helping people. The only thing I will say is if you ask me the same question 3 times and you don't do anything about it, I might tell you, go somewhere else.
Yeah, you'll delete it next to the I can 100x your business and guarantee your leads, right? Sorry, not sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, as we do wrap up, we have one final question here for you, Steve.
Uh-oh.
What is one question that you wish people would ask you more, but don't?
How can I learn my financials? Because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, and it's hard. And honestly, there's a book. It's a yellow book with like black chalkboard on it. It's called Accounting for Dummies. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it gives you the basics. Understand your balance sheet. Most people don't know the difference between an income statement and a balance sheet. Where do you know how much cash you have today? Income statement. No, that'll tell you your profitability, but most companies go out of business on the year they're the most profitable because they run out of cash. Mm-hmm. You need to understand what your balance sheet's telling you, what your assets, your liabilities, current liabilities, long-term liabilities, and know what you have. Mm-hmm. Because it's really hard to spend money. Well, it's not. It's easy to spend money, but if you don't know how much you have, it's real easy to get in over your head. Mm-hmm. And that's the most important thing about running. You said it. Mm-hmm. Cash flow mismanagement is probably one of the major causes of businesses going out of business.
Yep.
Well, and what was the other stat where...
It's probably made up.
No, I think it was Billy that said it, so it was probably somewhat true. But it was the amount of businesses that went out of business and they were profitable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
it was Billy who said that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A good friend in one of my first peer groups went out of business the year he made the most money he ever made on paper.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on paper, he was making all kind of money, but he was doing a bunch of commercial work, and they weren't paying him timely. They were paying him 180 days, and his suppliers wanted their money in 30 days.
Right. Yep.
There's a lot of lead lag there. And then he ended up having to file bankruptcy because they were coming after him, and he didn't have the cash.
Right. Well, and that's where you look at your P&L, right? Your profit and loss, and people see that on paper, like, oh, great, my EBITDA is phenomenal. I'm earning 20% EBITDA, but your cash flow.
Yeah, I'm into my credit line, and
what's
I'm out
in the
of money.
bank account?
Right. What's in the bank account? What's your balance sheet say? What are your actual, liability, contractual liabilities that are coming due that aren't that are post EBITDA, right? That's the other thing. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So if you have your taxes, your depreciation, your amortization, that you have to calculate into that. Like, what's your and I know a lot of people put an emphasis on EBITDA, rightfully so, because it is a leading indicator. But what's your actual true net? What's your true net after your EBITDA, right? And that's something that I think more people need to look into.
Absolutely. And can I teach it all to you? No, but I can point you to the people that can. Right. And
we should have those people in our business.
Absolutely.
An accountant, a bookkeeper, like go poke their brains and ask.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I see a lot is small guys that say, "Well, I don't have any overhead.
I have no cost of goods sold. It's me." Yeah.
Oh, can you park your car in there? No. Well, then your business ought to be compensating you for that.
Right. Yep.
Well, my wife does all the paperwork. How much you pay her? Well, I don't. Okay, so basically you're running this business and working for about $3 an hour, and you got half your house committed to it, but you have no overhead. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a CFO in your business?
We have a controller, not a full CFO, but
Okay.
I have he's a full accountant, and he does. Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that again it takes a 5-year degree to be able to compile all that stuff and know what you're doing, know what needs to be amortized, know what needs I'm not smart enough to do that, but I am dumb enough to hire somebody that will do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's that balance of the accountant, the bookkeeper. They tell the story of what's happened.
Right.
But who do you have in your business that's going to tell you the story of what's coming?
And that's where knowing your numbers, looking at your numbers daily. And like I say, one of our key ones is revenue per opportunity.
Right.
And then you're looking at average job ticket, all that stuff. But yeah, you got to have your forward-looking indicators and your backwards-looking indicators. And you're right. Accounting is a backward-looking indicator. You're driving your car out of the rearview mirror.
Correct.
100%.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking.
Yes.
It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, Colleen kind of led us into that one, so.
The good news is she doesn't charge me for being my manager. She's like set me up with like industry trade groups. Hey, Georgia contractors need a keynote. Would you be willing to talk to them? Sure, Colleen. Why not?
You're right. Yeah, I'll take my 10% fee, right?
Right,
so,
right. Don't tell her that.
5% for her.
Well, 5% of nothing's nothing, so
Right,
we're good.
there you go. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. And until next time.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.